Here it is, here somewhere, but it was an in-dot attachment that I was unable to open.
Oh, I saw that too.
Can you open those?
I couldn't open it either.
Occasionally I get them, but when he
I
went,
think it was a fault.
when he went on his end, he said it was a straight PDF.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. It's no worries.
Perhaps it was something the way that I received the data or mixed up, or it might have been in the earlier thread. I can't say for certain. But thank you for printing these, Ron.
No problem.
Okay. You got it all in your notebook? You didn't copy that in your notebook?
There may be.
It's incomplete notebook.
It's all right.
Ron, you doing all right, brother?
I'm fine. I'm fine. It's just so busy today.
I bite.
Yeah, it's just so busy today.
Burning the candle on both ends, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And then I got stuck by the train. I'm racing, trying to get here, trying to print this stuff out, and I'm just like,
Slipping, Ron.
They don't, the train
telling
doesn't
you.
stop for you?
No, of course not. Not for me, you know. And it seemed like it was a long one, and it was going really slow. So I was like, all right, losing my patience here.
I don't have that kind of,
Yeah.
it won't stop for me either.
Yeah. Almost.
Hey, you want that?
I can't put my book in.
All right, I've got 6:00 PM. I want to call the meeting to order. Special call meeting, if we could stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, before we adopt the agenda, I would like to make a couple of changes. We want to remove the approval of the minutes. We're going to have that on the next regular called meeting. And also, I'd like to remove item 5B from the agenda, mainly we have not had a response back from Tom or Bobby on some clear discretion and guidelines for that item. So do we need a motion to do that? All right, so I'd like to, with those changes, move to adopt the agenda with those changes.
Yep. Mhm.
Second?
I second.
All right. All in favor? Okay. We have any public comment?
Adopting your agenda has changed.
Sorry?
You have to ask for a motion to adopt your agenda as
Okay.
changed.
Okay, we'd like to, who would like to make the motion to
I
adopt
move that we
the?
adopt your agenda as changed.
So seconded.
All right, moved and second. All in favor? All right, thank you. All right, so we're moving right along to public comment. Do we have anyone that wants to make some public comment?
Not yet.
Okay, seeing none. Reports of officers, boards, and standing committees. Does anyone have anything grand they want to?
I just submitted my application to, or my form to Ron, that's it.
Thank you, Alan.
A month later.
No worries. It was actually due on the 31st. So what that was actually, if I may, We are in Villa Rica, certified local government, CLG, they're called. Oh, can you hear me?
No, I can't.
There you go. In Villa Rica, we are a CLG, a certified local government, so we have reporting that has to be done every so many years. So ours is due this year, so it's due July 31st. So I really do appreciate everybody for sending in everything, your resumes, your, anything that I asked for. So we're going to forward all that information over to the state as a part of our recertification application. So I appreciate everybody's ability to get all that stuff into me. So
I did not put a expiration date on my title because I don't know when it ended, so.
it's okay.
All right.
No worries.
All right, old business. Ron, do you have any old business?
No old business.
Doug,
Mr. Chairman, I do just have a quick question on old business. Do
Could you
we
turn your mic
have,
on, please, Doug, and talking to the mic so we can hear you?
a question on old business? Do we have an update on the Connolly Marchman COA? I know we had an agreement, then there was an update about a variance request for the gutter system external. And I believe that's the last thing I saw or heard on it. I'm just wondering, do we have another meeting coming up? Where are we at with that?
Yeah, thank you. So there was a request that came in and some questions in regards to them coming back to the commission to make some changes to the gutter system. The changes that they were proposing would have been external gutters in favor of internal gutters, because if you recall, we did talk about in the meeting having the possibility of aluminum gutters inside of or some type of gutters. I think it was anything
Aluminum,
other
copper.
than aluminum. It was copper, and it
Copper.
was some other material as well. So they were questioning if they could possibly do something on the exterior instead. We decided not to move forward with any application. Once we thought we were going to get an application, they said they didn't want to do it, so they're going to stick with whatever the original request was on the COA and what was granted to them. So it kind of just disappeared after that. So
Sorry, just to be clear, it's remaining as it was in the initial meeting, that it was approved with those specific considerations, and they agreed to, and that's where it stands currently.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I think if you want to know something, I had an opportunity to meet for lunch several people for Voices, and a couple of them were members of Happy Valley. And I said, I'm not here for that. However, I was very pleased with what they really wanted to be able to do and what they're looking into. So that's a good thing.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to new business. We've got an application requesting a certificate of appropriateness for renovations to Wicks Tavern to replace the cedar shingle roof with a 30-year architectural asphalt shingle roof.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. We have an application tonight for 212 West Wilson Street. This is commonly known as Wicks Tavern. This request is actually being made by actually it's one of our commissioners. It's Sarah Black Pitts. She's also a member of the Historical Society, from what I understand. So there's they're looking to do a roof replacement. This is going to be taking off a cedar roof and putting on a 30-year asphalt architectural shingle roof. I don't have any pictures of what that would look like or what the name of the brand is. It looks like there's a representative here as well. But just some facts about this property really quickly. The property is it supposedly is the oldest commercial structure in West Georgia, apparently according to the sign at least, that's out front. It is a property that was moved. It was moved from a location north of downtown Villa Rica, and I believe it was near Dallas Highway area, and moved on into this site in 1998. So this is not the original site for it. And it is the only building that I'm aware of in Villa Rica that has a wooden cedar roof on it. I'm not sure. I don't know if I've ever seen any others with a cedar. But in either case, it is here before us tonight for a COA. So I did prepare a staff report that was included in your packets. It gives a little bit more background information into the style of the house, of course. This really is kind of a vernacular style. It is a Dutch, it looks like it has Dutch colonial elements on the sides, especially with the chimneys on both sides of it. But it also kind of has somewhat of a cottage look to it with that full front porch on the front of it. So it does have an external building in the back. Is some type of a barn that was built at some point in the 90s, although it looks a lot older than that, but apparently was built in the 90s. So property, from what I understand, just changed hands. And of course, on the second page here, you can see some of the different elements of a Dutch colonial that I included for you. But there's also some sections of the ordinance that, or the design guidelines rather, that I have included as well, that you should also take a look at as a part of your, if you haven't already, as a part of your deliberations, and what our design guidelines actually say about roofing materials. So the staff did recommend denial of this application, and the purposes and the reasons for that is primarily because of the facts that I already pretty much outlined about the history of the house, and also the fact that it may be the only cedar roofing house or structure that we have here. That you might be aware of another one. Yours, okay, very well. So you don't have a slate roof. You have a cedar.
Underneath it was the wooden cedar shingles.
The same
There's-
for mine.
Yeah.
They're still there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, mine too. I
Very
guess
good.
whoever renovated our houses did the same thing.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. So in either case, that's what we have before us. Also the denial is kind of based off of the principle that we're changing roofing materials. So anytime that we're changing any type of roofing materials, I usually side with the fact of keeping the same material than changing a material. Anytime that there's a material change in anything, I usually would go towards keeping the same material. So that may not work in all circumstances. So in either case, I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Thank you, Ron. Do we have any public comment?
I have a public comment, but should I come over there?
I'm sorry? Sure.
Okay.
Yes, she can.
Just so that all of you know, I happened to watch the Brooks Tavern being moved to where it is right now. I was asked by our city manager
She needs a mic.
4 years ago what I thought should happen to it.
N-
And I said it should be moved to Pine Mountain.
Nancy.
Because it was used for.
Do you wanna use this?
It was used for
You have to be on the mic, yeah.
all of the people who were mining. And I also then donated a box to the mountain because I didn't, at that point, Brooks Tavern was not the local historical registry, but I donated a copper box that wood was kept in, and it was authenticated, and it's embossed on the top and on 3 sides, dating back to the 1800s. And we believe that it was used in Brooks Tavern. So historically, I have it. I'm also doing some work for someone else, and he has given me the permission to donate to Brooks Tavern many of the artifacts that were in there originally, and I have them at my home, and I have them at his home. And so once all of these are done, we are ready to put them in when they're going to be safe and everything is completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
John, you're next.
Sir, if you could just step to the microphone and state your name and address, please.
Probably won't need the mic because I'm kind of loud. My name's John Bailey. I'm the Vice President of the Villa Rica Area Historical Society. And we acquired the Wicks Tavern. And most everyone from Villa Rica knows the story of Wicks Tavern. It's set up near where the hospital is. It was during the gold mine days. It was a tavern, a stagecoach, and that's the general information everyone knows. But I'm gonna take you, and I'm the building now. I'm not the story anymore. 44 years after George Washington became president, they were building the Wicks Tavern. During the period of John Quincy Adams, in 1825 to 1829, he was president. So that's who was head of our government when Wicks Taverns first started operating. But we still have that building standing today. Now, it's been moved more than once. It's been dismantled to make the move. And so everything is not exactly like it was in the beginning. So you've lost the historical integrity as far as getting government grants and this type of thing, because it's not on the same location and it's been altered some. So everything that we get as far as monies to do our project is coming from individuals. And the roofing that we're planning on putting on, the regular roofing that's on it now is the old time wood shingles. Well, right around that period in history, the regular asbestos type shingles was also being developed, and it was a new product on the market. And a lot of your richer people were putting this on their buildings. So we're not 100% what they use, whether they use the old wooden shingles or whether they wind up using the new. But the building itself, if you was to take all the boards off and just had that skeleton standing there, everything is put together with pegs, lap joints, and different type of old-timey joints. So the inner structure of the house is just like it was when John Adams was president. And so once the clapboard was put on, and some of those clapboards are actually the original ones that they put on too. So it's a structure that is older than just what we think of Villa Rica and the gold mine. It's of major importance to the early history of the United States. And so it's a very unusual building. And what we're planning on doing with it, once we get everything together and repaired and put back, we're gonna have the tavern itself is a museum. So the museum is the tavern. And then behind in the barn, there's a lot of uses we can do with that. But we're also creating a museum in the building. We're gonna have counters all around and show the different periods from when Wicks Tavern started up to modern time. And we've just inquired, I don't know whether Sarah told you or not, but we had a doctor who was the grandson of the Marchman doctor. He has donated some stuff to us to have a doctor's museum inside that building also. So it's going to be entirely different from what it's been used for before. Of course, we could expand and do weddings, photographies, meetings if somebody wants to have a place to meet. It's big enough for that. So that's kind of our future plans for that particular structure. And all of us that work on it are pretty much historians, and we're not gonna put anything wild on that thing. We're gonna try to get it as close to original as we can. And so, with the help of y'all and us, I think we could make that a show place, not only for Villa Rica, but for travelers coming up and down I-20. The best money that you can make is someone that comes in off the highway, buys some drinks at McDonald's or any other place, come to your couple of museums or a couple of history places, go back on the expressway and drive off, and you got their money. So you're not having to invest in all this like most people would have to build big buildings and hotels and all this. All that's already established. So, but anyway, that's as far as I'm gonna go. But if you want to read the story, my wife and I got together and did a book on Harttown, which is just down the road about a mile and a half. And we've got the story of Wicks Tavern and Wicks himself and his family. And we've also discovering new things that we hadn't zipped up yet. So as soon as we do that, we're gonna have a very interesting history, not only of the place and the building, but of the people that actually run it. And so,
Thank
for
you,
your time.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
you. I would like to add that when we were acquiring the tavern, Mr. Lott, the owner, did make the cedar shingle out of the wood that was there at the time. They had their own woodworking set and splitter, and they made the shingles themselves. So originally, when they had moved it, we had found pictures of it being a tin roof. But we have since decided, since yesterday, that we will no longer use metal. We will continue with the shingle that we were going to.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
First of all, I want to thank you so much for that history lesson today. That was very good to learn. I would love to see your book because I never knew about Harttown. So thank you. I don't know, is it here in the library too?
Yeah, well, we've written several books about the history of the area.
Yes, sir.
Dark Corner, we left Villa Rica gold mine alone because there's someone else writing a book on the gold mine.
Okay,
And
very
then we
good.
did Harttown, and so there's a lot of new discoveries that we've discovered that nobody's heard about yet unless they buy a book and look and see what it is. But eventually it'll be stored at the tavern itself. We've got a library upstairs, and you'll be able to come in and actually look up history,
Excellent.
family history, and
For the people who are brand new and don't know Mr. Bailey, he and his wife Elaine have lived here forever. My neighbor grew up with him on Liberty Road many, many years ago, about 78, 79 years ago.
Point of parliamentary procedure.
And
Because I wasn't done with my
And we are
question.
still, what I'm doing is introducing the man to give some credibility to what he has to say. But he is probably one of our premier historians in Villa Rica.
Thank you, Commissioner Mims. But, and again, thank you, sir, for that. I was asking that question, well, I was preceding to ask a question. You have done so much history here in the Villa Rica area.
Mr. Chairman, point of parliamentary procedure, please. Or parliamentary question, please.
I'm gonna allow Angela to continue.
Well, the point I'm making, with all due respect, sir, it doesn't even require acknowledgement. The point of parliamentary question or procedure, it actually in Robert's rules allows you to quote-unquote interrupt. I'm trying not to do that, but I don't think I should be ignored altogether.
You're not being ignored altogether.
We just
but
want her
had
to
We had a
finish.
discussion going on right here. I saw you hand come up. We'll be right there. If you'll just bear with us, please. Please continue.
And I apologize, I don't know if his hand went up first.
No, it didn't.
Okay. I just had a simple question. I'm very intrigued by your historical information. I wanted to ask, have you discovered any African-American history to be included in the museum?
Yeah, in fact, there should be some in each one of the books that we do. But believe it or not, for some reason, the black community will not give up their history.
Correct.
Really?
I don't know why, but there's always one that's historically wants things done and told about the community.
Uh-huh.
And so we try to make sure that we've got something. I can tell you all about the miners, and 90% of the miners were the black community was the miners.
Right.
And they were doing all the work. And a lot of people don't realize that they were the craftsmen. The white guy that had the money, he didn't know what to do. He had to rely on the people that knew what to do. So they were the masters of work and business and stuff, and then this other guy just reaped the money. So it's
Interesting, thank you.
It's the history
Yeah.
in that area too.
Okay, thank you so
Now,
much.
there is a borough, do you know a fellow by the name Dansby?
Dansby?
He's in,
That's his last name?
he lives in Alabama now, but he's
Oh.
doing a history on the black, in this area. His people originally were from here.
Okay.
Just to give you a good example of something that's real different. Everyone has heard of, the,
Mr.
Carnes,
Mr. Billy, you can come to the mic.
the Carnes, cabin. Well, he brought one of his slaves with him, but he got one of the special type slaves. A lot of people don't know this, that they were taking the Irish and the African. They were trying to get the healthiest African they could get and the smartest Irishman they could get, and they were breeding them. And they come out with a very high, almost white, is what most of them turned out. And they were smart, and Mr. Carnes let him buy his freedom, and he wound up running hotels, stagecoach stops. They said his stagecoach stop was, the stage would actually go out of its way to come there to eat because the food was so much better than what some of the stagecoaches were along the thing. So there's a lot of, I wouldn't mind sitting down with somebody and tell them if they want to write it, because if you've ever wrote a book, you only want to do one, because they are tough.
Yeah.
And you actually, when you do the book, you've left out more than what's in the book. You just know all kind of little things that kind of don't fit.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
but this community, if you sat down with me, 2 or 3 other historians, oh boy. Well, first of all, we talk your ears off. But the second thing is, you would learn stuff. Something. I know I'm only supposed to have about 5 minutes, but has anyone ever heard of Simsville?
Yes,
Does anybody know where it is?
yes,
I know exactly where it is.
yes.
They was doing it on the Little Tallapoosa River, Highway 78.
Right.
Was the kind of the upper crossing to go into Indian Territory, which was in Alabama. If you go down to the left, there was another bridge that crossed the water, but you could also cross it at low water without a bridge. But finally, all the farming and all this has changed it where they had to have a bridge, and that's totally gone. But where that thing came out is Flat Rock community. So it was a shortcut from Flat Rock up to Villa Rica. And you turned the other way and you went to the courthouse at Carrollton. But Carroll County Courthouse originally was sat at Sand Hill. and then they finally transferred up, because at the Sand Hill community, there's about 5 Indian trails that came together right there, and they split off in different directions. And the same thing happened over in Carrollton, that they were splitting off in different directions. And they didn't have to cross the main rivers and stuff, so it was easier to travel that way. But
Mr. Bailey, while you're up here, and Commissioner Lang, if you'd excuse me for one more moment, does any other commissioners have any questions for Mr. Bailey?
No, I sure do
Thank
not.
you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Yield, sir.
I do have questions. But my point of order is, well, the point of order I want, sorry. No, I'm sorry. It's my fault. I keep forgetting to do that. I do have questions, but before I get to that, I want to address the point of parliamentary procedure. Because it wasn't permitted at the time when it was made, it becomes less pertinent now, because the procedures that are going to be questioned have already taken place. Which is why I believe Robert's Rules allows for the quote-unquote, again, the interruption to get clarification at the time when something's happening. But I will make a couple quick comments about that before I ask my questions. I want to make it clear that my main point about the objections is nothing to do, in this case, with you, sir, or the tavern. I think everyone loves the fact that the tavern is here, the oldest building in West Georgia, and that we happen to be very fortunate and blessed that it happens to be in Villa Rica, if you live here, or, excuse me, nearby here. So, but my points are more with the procedure of the meetings, not so much your application, but just the way that we conduct the meetings, which is why I was making those points. So I'll just make them quick, well, forget quickly, it's too late. Public comment, right on our new agenda, states that it's to be limited to 3 minutes. And because of the importance of this matter and respect to you, sir, the commission, I suppose that's the reason, the commission allowed to go over 3 minutes, but it's just on our agenda today that rule is in place and going to be followed. The second point is that we didn't make an announcement that we were moving to questions. At 1 minute, we were at public comment, and the next minute, one of the commissioners was asking questions. And again, just distributed yesterday, Friday, and yesterday is the guide to Historic Preservation Commission meetings, and there was no clear indication that we were moving to the questioning period. So it seemed to me that it was something was missing. And the third point I would make is that when we're in the questioning period, it's for the commission to ask questions of the applicant, not for, which we've had historically, again, sir, not addressed to you, we've had this historically at other meetings, where instead of the commission asking the questions, we get into open dialogue, where we ask questions, then the commission is asked questions by the applicants, and clearly that's not supposed to be happening. You attend a city council meeting and you ask the mayor and the council a question, you see what happened, you see how quickly you be shut down. And it's for the commission to be asking questions, not be answering questions.
Commissioner Lang, I'm going to interrupt you right there. I think we need to move on, back onto the agenda here. I appreciate your comments. I think that's something that we can all address as a commission. I appreciate your concern, but we're going to move on.
this is the first time I've ever addressed y'all, and I didn't know the rules, would there be any way that you can actually hand the rules to somebody to
Mr. Bailey, I'm grateful for your explanation.
You did fine.
And I think all of us up here are very grateful for your contribution and letting us know a little bit of the history and whatnot. And I apologize if anything sounded insensitive coming from this commission.
I have something to say.
And again, sir, please, I did not mean any of that to be addressed to you personally, or the tavern, or the application. This is probably some things that could be discussed during a work session, but
Mr. Chairman.
But it's happening, and
I would like to
bring it
make
up.
a point of clarification. Public comment is held to 3 minutes, and I think I was the only one who made a public comment, and it was under 3 minutes. When you go to a city council meeting and a proposal has been proposed for any kind of variance or whatever, those discussions can go on for a long time. The last city council meeting, there were 5 of them on the agenda, and it took at least a half an hour for each one of them to be discussed back and forth with questions from the commissioners. So there is a big difference in the time limit that we're giving to the applicants as opposed to public comment. That's a completely different and separate item.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mims.
Yep.
I'd like to
You-
say that, Ron, you made some really good points with the cedar shingles on there, and I certainly respect staff's recommendation. However, in this case, I feel like that what Mr. Bailey's brought to light, what the Historical Society is working on, and also our duty as citizens, as volunteers, to the other citizens in preservation of history is to put a good roof on this thing. I personally have reservations on wood shingles. You see them a lot of times in coastal areas. They last a long time if they're done right. They're very expensive. It's high maintenance. And if you have a problem, the problems go on to the point where you have a severe amount of damage done to a structure before you could ever know what it is. So before I make a motion, is there any other discussion that
Yes.
we'd like to have on this?
Yes, I haven't had an opportunity to ask my questions yet of the applicant. I have questions for the applicant.
Okay.
Sarah,
Yes.
you being the applicant?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Do you want me to get down to the podium?
Yes, please. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay, so first question I have is, I'd just like to confirm that based on, what I've read and what we've discussed, our discussion said that the roof was originally, from what history you have, and I believe you mentioned you might even have a photo, I'm not sure, I think you mentioned that. But the belief is that the roof was originally metal, is that correct?
Yes, sometime in the 1960s to 1970s of the photo that we have, it was metal.
Yeah. Oh, as late as the did you say
1960s, 1970s,
1960s.
before
Okay.
it was moved.
Okay, so it shakes now,
Yes,
and it was metal at one time.
right.
And that's the two materials we know of for sure.
Right.
Okay. If you could impart, some of your knowledge historically, please. Would you describe, or can you tell us what the typical roofing materials from the time period of the building, 1830s or so, that era, what the typical roofing materials would consist of from that time period?
Wood, hay, whatever you could find to put on a roof that would, have a covering.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like wood, metal,
Wood,
slate?
hay, mud.
Okay, okay, thank you. So would you think that, based on that either metal or wood would be considered like replacements in accordance with the Preservation Act and HPC guidelines?
Yes, and that's why we picked architectural shingle, because of the look. We'll give it a cedar-like look, not regular shingle. It's going to be, you know, the architectural kind, so.
Thank you for the clarification, and I do understand that. I just mean the actual makeup of the material, not the look necessarily.
Right.
But wood or metal would both be considered, I guess, hay, you could put in there also, would be considered like material based on what you're saying.
Right.
But not a realistic replacement. So I'm just saying, trying to narrow it down to the logical ones. And so wood and metal would be like replacements. Okay. You can answer this personally or professionally, but do you believe that the siding and roofing, that siding and roofing would fall into a category of some of the largest and more or most obvious architectural features of any structure, meaning things that anyone would quickly notice from the street, roof, siding versus a vinyl window or versus a wood window, a 3-inch molding versus 4-inch molding. Would you agree that siding and roof are two of the most substantial and obvious architectural features?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Have you investigated any type of metal roof alternatives?
I have. What you sent me the other day was going to be about $4,500 compared to our $2,500 shingles.
Okay, so the material is of like material, it's available, but it's a money,
It's
are
a
you citing
costly-
money cost?
We're trying to stay in business for years after this. We're not
No,
going to spend all our money on a roof. We're trying to get it to a 30-year span. And then, you know, we're not
No,
spending
I'm-
$4,500 on a roof.
I'm just trying to understand, is it, well, that yes, they can do it, but it takes 12 months to produce the roof, or that, or is
Yeah,
it
it's just-
financial?
It's a no. It's a no. We've already decided for 3 months we were going to do the architectural shingle.
Okay, but for financial reasons?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And just to confirm, I haven't been to, I looked for the City of Villarica Historical Society website. I did not see one, and I do see Facebook, but I'm not a member of Facebook, so I haven't been able to, check the do any research on your organization. But would you say that if it's not the main mission, that one of the main missions of your organization is to preserve and restore historic sites?
Yes.
Point of order, Commissioner Lang.
Sir?
We'd like to move on with the questioning. The question's not in order. What you're asking here is a history of the historical preservation, and we have an agenda that we need to keep.
Well, if you think that particular question is out of order, I'll skip over it.
Okay, please, sir.
All right.
So I think this has been answered. So with both metal roofing and shakes, which would both be acceptable, like materials, and them both being available,
Point of order.
I think we're just here to vote on a COA
Commissioner,
for
we're here to vote on
a roof.
a roof that, with the application that's been presented, and I'm really not following the purpose of your questioning here.
I'm going to ask the chair to show me in the HPC rules and guidelines where a commissioner is not allowed to ask questions. Nor have I asked questions yet of Mr. Johnson and been given that opportunity.
Oh, boy. Hey, Commissioner Lang, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go back and forth here in an unprofessional manner, using professionalism as a disguise. We're here to have a meeting to hear the history. We're here to deal with one thing on the agenda. It has nothing to do with the metal shingle. It has nothing to do with the wood shingle other than they're coming off. And the chair would like to continue on. If you have any more relevant questions, please ask them so that we can move on.
I'll conclude my questions to the applicant with this statement, that asking about the materials clearly is relevant for this commission. And you don't have to look very far in the rules and guidelines to understand that like materials, I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard, you know, vinyl windows will not be allowed to be replaced instead of wood windows. And for you to make a comment that it's not relevant to talk about materials that'll be used is shocking to me, and I'll end that there.
Thank you.
What about my opportunity to ask staff, Mr. Johnson, questions?
Sir?
Is that granted?
Carry on.
I will make this quick. Mr. Johnson, whenever the city receives a COA application, do you always send either someone to the site or at least request the Community Development Department to review and provide their assessment and advice?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was done in this case as you provided us a report, correct? As you
Yes, sir.
referred to earlier?
Mhm.
Okay. And to make sure I've, read and understood the report, did the report point out as item number 1 that, quote, historic roofing material should be maintained, repaired, and replaced in kind, unquote? Was that listed as number 1 as under the recommendations?
Thank you. Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, thank you. And as you said, the recommendation from the city was to deny the application, and if I'm not mistaken, you went on to say it's because generally roofing is always going to be something that that the city looks to maintain. In this case, you went, I think, a little step further in saying because of the rarity of the materials, it was of particular concern in this case.
Yes.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
No, yes, I agree, but that's, it's not just for roofing materials, but I feel that way about all material changes, including windows from like wood to vinyl and things like that. That's kind of a part of the Historic Preservation Commission to be able to keep materials the same as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
This is a COA for a roof. There's 3 options. You have asphalt, wood, or metal. I think that's what we're here for, and the protocol to know the ins and outs of it and the definitions and how we got there. I think we just need to vote on what the COA is.
Well,
Thank you,
that's-
Commissioner.
Yeah. Well, just to, I guess, from a staff's perspective and just kind of knowing the rules of HPC, all commissioners can ask questions.
Sure.
This is a public hearing, so it's like it's ran almost like a court, like you're the prosecutor and you're trying to gather information, or essentially like a judge, and you're trying to gather information from the applicant. And it's really important that we actually that we make our decisions based off of truth and based off of facts that we have in front of us. So you gathering information this is just a staff's perspective. I don't mean to be I'm not trying to be out of order, but you asking questions is appropriate for a public hearing and for a meeting like this. And I see how you're trying to do it in a methodological way from almost like essentially like a court. You're trying to gather your information in order to make a decision, and all of the commissioners can and should do that. But I caution all of the commissioners tonight to please read over that form that I passed out earlier today and I sent via email. on what the procedures are, your Robert's Rules of Order, all of that stuff. We've been in this meeting now for 47 minutes.
Right.
And I still don't know what these roofing materials are going to look like. We don't have a picture of them. We don't have a copy of the product.
That's my point.
And yeah, right. So I feel like it's important that we gather the information and we don't really rush through. But we have been here for 45 minutes and we're not getting.
Correct.
We need more relevant questions from everybody on how to handle this case tonight.
Thank you, Ron.
I'll address that. KRG was going to provide the shingles for free, and that is why I didn't provide any of that information. I felt that to ask them for anything more than what they were doing was, I don't know, disrespectful, so.
Do I have any more questions for the applicant? All right, hearing none, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the removal of the cedar shingle and to be replaced by an asphalt architectural shingle.
I second it.
Hearing a motion and a second, do we have any discussion?
Yes, of course. So, the discussion, Mr. Johnson just pointed out that we're here now 50 minutes, and we're voting, and the first time we're going to know what this roof looks like is when it's installed. After the monies, which are limited to begin with, and we won't know until it's installed. Now, most of us do know what a modern architectural roof look like. Well, that's why the application asks for pictures, renderings, samples.
Picture, I mean, it's just simple, you just look up asphalt shingles yourself. KRG, I mean, or you look up Home Depot asphalt shingles, I mean, I don't know, but.
Well, we're in the middle of a motion, so
Mr. Chairman,
we have to continue.
I'd like to call for a question.
Yeah, we can-
All right, call to question. So we have a motion, a second. All in favor? So that motion will carry 4-1 with the applicant abstaining. All right, thank you. Rough meeting tonight. I'm glad we got through it. We'll, work on these Robert's Rules of Order and everything as we move on. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Can I have a comment added to the minutes? Is that permitted?
But we're not adjourned.
Excuse me, is that yes?
By all means.
Okay. Can we just make a comment to the minutes that, well, it may seem as though I am just dragging this out. I am trying to gather, glean, and gain information so I can make an informed, intelligent decision on not just a historic site, but the oldest in West Georgia, one of the most important decisions facing this commission recently, and concerned with precedent since the COAs that are going to be coming forward more now that we've had success in declaring the downtown a historic district. And I'm very concerned with setting precedent on just issuing variances that don't follow guidelines, just simply don't follow the guidelines. And there's a perception that could come from that. We've already have one or more strong vocal people that usually show up that think we're here for a waste of time and shouldn't exist. and now just going to welcome the opportunity to use perception that, well, if you're a member of the HPC or something like that, I guess you can get anything passed. And so we're setting precedent. We got to worry about the perception of what we do, not that we base our decisions on that, but it's something we need to be concerned about. And I think, as far as, the rules and following, that information, that's one of the questions I had from Mr. Johnson, is I wanted to know from him, if I was permitted to finish, if he's got any concerns about us setting precedent with the additional role that the HPC is going to be called upon to play, not asking it, just making my statement for the minutes, not asking for Mr. Johnson to come back up. But I do want to say for the minutes, for the notes, that I can just about guarantee you that this decision will be appealed and be before the mayor and the council, and will be appealed on abuse of discretion. Thank you.
And I want to add also that, personally, my consideration for allowing the change in material is because we will not have this change from a wood shingle to an asphalt or a metal shingle come before us, if at all, because as staff spoke, there are very few, if none, of the wood shingles left in the city. And that's for a good reason.
The precedent is not for shingles, wood versus asphalt, it's for variances in general.
We don't do variances at HPC.
We don't do them.
So, did I hear a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah.
I would like to address your question, though. No, the library does not have any good history books. They have very limited amount.
Actual face-to-face training, if you go to one that is only $30, you learn that there are some gray areas to be covered. And so